Hello, welcome to our program Cairo Local Time. We're in the second segment. As I said, we're going to be talking about the Egyptian parliamentary elections of 2020 and the 13 governorates who have been taking place during the past couple of days and the second round of this phase. And we're going to talk more about the future of this new parliament, the expected agenda that would be on the list, and how important and significant is it to also pump new blood in this parliament every 5 years. I'm very much delighted to have joining me here in the studio Dr. Bahi who is an Egyptian Council of Foreign Affairs physician. Thank you very much for joining in.
My pleasure.
Let's talk more about, we're talking about over 63 million Egyptians that are eligible to vote. And we want to talk about the importance of their participation. We've seen a great turnout, especially at the second round of the 13 governorates, which included Cairo in it. And maybe you can tell us your intake on that.
Well, of course, the second round especially was, there was a very high level of participation, and I think that's a good indication for the stability of the system and the re-engagement of the people in its institutions and its business as usual. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very a positive step. Mm-hmm. That took
How
place.
essential is the parliament in the political life or the stability of the political life of any country around the world?
Well, I mean, the parliament especially, they play different roles in certain regimes. They play a much more pronounced roles than other regimes. And there is always three basic powers. The executive is the most prominent for the people because that's then you have the judiciary, which is a passive authority. It's not proactive, it waits for cases to come to it. And then you have the legislature, which sets the framework for everything. And it sets the framework for the operation of the executive. And it is the executive and the legislature, both are the representatives of the people. Mm. They come through elections. But the legislature is actually very close to the people because they choose people that they are not just national figures but local figures as well from their various districts.
Mm-hmm. We're seeing new faces that are, the old faces who have been in the parliament for the past 5 years have tried to run again, but we're seeing new blood being pumped into the parliament this season with the new faces and younger representatives as well. What does this tell us about the awareness of the people when it comes to the choice of their representative or parliament member?
I think one of the interesting and encouraging characteristics is the representation by women, mm-hmm. which has reached about 25%. Mm-hmm. At one time, the systems saw that women were much less active, and they began to artificially impose a minimum for women. Now we are seeing that they are proactive and they come out of their own initiative, and they are very well represented in the Egyptian parliament. We have seen some of the old faces continue, some of the old faces gone, which is an excellent so you have some older blood, but also the exit of some of them less current blood, so that was good. Then you have a strong representation for the younger people, and we have seen them increasingly participating in the Egyptian process since the 2011, and they continue to be very proactive with the political system. And that's exceedingly important, so that we hear them, we listen to them, and they participate in what is happening and setting the framework for the operation of the executive.
Right before these elections took place, there was also an elections for the Senate, and that's something that was newly integrated under a different name in the Parliament, where there's a group of specialists who are going to be responsible for the legislation process to make the decision-making process and the voting much more easier in the upcoming period. Do you think that with the presence of the Senate, that this Parliament is going to actually have better advantages and face possibly lesser challenges in the upcoming period?
Yes, I think that was, so we are not just having popular votes and popular people, which is very important, but we are also having people with established procedures. Those people of experience who were appointed, 100 of them, in our Senate, are the way that they were selected is very interesting, because they went to the various institutions and asked them to make recommendations. And through those recommendations, they were selected. So in a way, they are a representative, or perceived as a representative, people of expertise from the various institutions that recommended them or nominated them to the presidency.
We're seeing more parties also having representatives to represent their parties, political parties, in this Parliament of 2020, and specifically the youth generation parties, and empowering youth within these parties, these political parties, to take part and be an active role player in this Parliament. How do you see that being also as part of a healthy process for a more democratic, stable political life in Egypt in the upcoming 5 years?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, I think some of the parties who have not, who don't have as much roots as they should, were also asked to nominate certain of their candidates, and that's what they did. And hopefully this will encourage such parties in towards more participation in the political system in the future.
Yes, I want to talk more about the challenges of this, the nature of the voting and the elections this time. The whole world is facing pandemic, and we've seen successfully even those who are voting abroad that were in cooperation with their consulates or embassies and monitored by the Ministry of Immigration here in Egypt, to be able to ensure that people would cast their ballots via a post office. For as part of the precautionary measures. Also here, we've seen the voting process take place under tight precautionary measures and restrictions, and monitor and observation by the Ministry of Health in cooperation, of course, with the Ministry of Interior. How successful was this role model in light of the pandemic challenge?
First, the pandemic challenge is very important to address because we need to encourage, first take care of our people, that's number one, and number two, we need to encourage tourism, and Egypt therefore should take this pandemic very seriously, which it is. But you have to also realize that Egypt is more fortunate than other countries in terms of the pandemic for several factors. For example, the people over 60 in Egypt are 5%. In countries like Italy, it's 38%. So countries like Italy are more vulnerable to this, especially the COVID-19, the string of corona, which the recent string of corona. Egyptians seem to have to be balancing between precautionary measures on the one hand, but also not restricting their economy and their participation in the economy on another. And therefore, we have seen people participating in our elections with precautionary measures, but most of them in person. It was most of the mailing vote was done by those who were outside the country.
Now, what are the issues that you think should be the priority list on the upcoming Parliament inauguration of 2020, especially that 5 years ago the challenges and the nature of the problems that were here in Egypt were very different. Now we have moved a far big leap of steps in terms of the economic reform program, or even raising awareness and rights and so forth. What's new on the agenda did you think should be a top priority for this Parliament?
There are three top priorities, which are the economy, then the economy, and finally the economy. Those are the priorities. And we are living in a developing world. We have to address issues like energy, and to legislate issues like energy. We are seeing the importance of renewable energy. We are seeing a restriction on fossil fuel energy, and we need a legislature that can encourage clean energy in Egypt. So that is an important economic aspect that needs to be addressed. There are new technologies coming out in terms of IQ, artificial intelligence, AI, which needs to be addressed because they are as important as they are on the one hand, as invasive they are on the other. So we have started this process with the privacy law, but a lot needs to be elaborated on and addressed, and how we can carve the development of the positive use of the massive data that is slowly developing while still protecting the privacy of people. A lot of more detailed legislature should be addressing this, especially when it comes to data repositories and how we can secure the national interests of Egypt, because those could be a serious threat. So there are a lot of issues that needs to be addressed by the Parliament to put Egypt in the forefront of the quickly developing world, which we have not seen it going at a sufficiently a quick pace as it should in the past Parliament, and we hope that there will be more of it to come in the coming Parliament to make Egypt more of a legalistic society where people know the rights and obligations rather than leave it to unclear administrative affairs.
So that's in terms of what the entire Parliament should be working towards. What about the advice that you would suggest to give out to the individual participants who are very eager to start the sessions and are looking forward to a very hard-working 5 years? What do you advise them personally?
I would advise them to create a strong working group with the people of experience that have been selected. They are a source of important expertise, and also seek others from within the country to be able to understand the developments and set legislation which is responsive to the new challenges that Egypt is facing and the whole world is facing. When you look at the developments, legislative developments in many of the countries related to new transport systems, new data management systems, we need to, instead of reinventing the wheel, to expose ourselves internationally and try to select from this what suits us best.
That's very interesting, and of course, looking forward. I mean, speaking of going international, the whole world is now looking forward to, the new parliament, and this is also definitely reflecting positivity and stability to Egypt and its political life. Unfortunately, our time is up. I want to thank you very much, Dr. Bahi Al-Abrashi, Egyptian Council of Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for joining us on this program. That brings us to the end of our program of Cairo Local Time. Thank you very much for watching.